From throwing sea animals on the ring to baptizing children in the Stanley Cup, NHL players have some of the weirdest traditions in professional sport. Here are the weirdest NHL traditions. The Detroit Octopuses. On April 15, 1952, the legend of the Octopus began. Detroit was attempting to capture the Stanley Cup and needed to win 8 games to do so. Two brothers, Pete and Jerry Cusimano, threw an octopus onto the ice at Olympia Stadium, with each tentacle representing a Detroit victory. That year, the team won the championship, and tradition was born. The 3 stars. It's a well-known tradition in North American hockey to award 3 stars to the 3 finest players at the end of the game. The custom began in 1937 when an oil firm designed the 3-star 3 stars to promote 3-star gas. Throwing hats on the ice after a hat trick. For as long as I can remember, the hat trick has been a big deal in hockey. Scoring 3 goals in a game is an impressive effort that typically but not always results in victory. Fans fling hats onto the ice in joy after a player gets his 3rd goal. Sure, this slows the game for a few minutes as rink personnel sweep and clean up, but it's worth it for home team fans who get to enjoy a one-of-a-kind celebration. The rat trick. You've heard of the hat trick, but what about the rat trick? This term was coined in the mid-1990s after a Florida player killed a rat with his stick in the team's locker room before scoring 2 goals. It involves spectators celebrating goals by tossing plastic rats onto the ice. Unfortunately, throwing rodents onto the ice is no longer permitted, but 1996 will always be remembered by Florida fans as the Year of the Rat. The Winnipeg Whiteout. The Winnipeg Whiteout tradition, which began in 1987 during the Stanley Cup playoffs, involves fans wearing full white attire to home games in order to create an intimidating atmosphere for the team's opponents. It started as a reaction to Calgary's Sea of Red, when fans dressed in red, but grew into something much bigger until a string of defeats earned it the moniker White Curse. Playoff beards. The playoff beard tradition, which is thought to have started in 1980, is simple. Players cut their beards when their team advances to the Stanley Cup playoffs, and then they don't shave them again until they are either eliminated or declared winners. Teams, fans, and the NHL have expanded the tradition in a variety of ways, including inviting fans to grow beards and raise money for charity. Each player spends a day with the Stanley Cup. The coveted Stanley Cup is the crown jewel of the NHL, and it's a long-standing tradition within the league that every player on the championship-winning team gets one day with the cup. There are numerous stories and myths about what players have done with their day, such as baptizing their children in it or eating enormous ice cream sundaes out of it. No stepping on the logo. Hockey clubs with their own rink have locker rooms that prominently display their team's logo. Nobody, player or not, shall cross over or tread on the logo in the middle of the room, according to a generally known convention. This one's origins are unknown, but it's widely accepted. Only winners touch the Stanley Cup. Many hockey traditions predictably revolve around the Stanley Cup. The players understand and accept that only victors are permitted to touch the Stanley Cup. You may not touch it until you have won the championship. It's unclear what the punishment is for touching it before you've won, but it's safe to presume that the rebellious individual will be cursed. Saluting the fans. Fans are a vital and well-liked aspect of hockey culture. After a home win, the entire team skates to the center of the ice and salutes their fans with their sticks. It began in Europe and was introduced to the NHL by European-born players. Cheering through the national anthem. This particular tradition began in 1985 when Chicago was experiencing postseason difficulties. Desperate to get their side revved up for a game, Chicago Stadium fans opted to cheer all the way through the Star-Spangled Banner, kicking off a long-standing tradition. Engraving players' names on the Stanley Cup. No other championship trophy in North American professional sports engraves the names of all winners onto the trophy itself, making them everlasting. When their team wins the cup, their names are forever inscribed on the Stanley Cup. That implies that even the lowliest fourth-line player will have his name emblazoned on the Stanley Cup beside Howe, Beliveau, Richard, Hull, Orr, Gretzky, Lemieux, and Lidstrom. When a new ring of names is exhausted, an older one is retired to the Hockey Hall of Fame, ensuring that those names remain among the game's immortals. It's a majestic tradition that personalizes the Stanley Cup like no other trophy in team sports and contributes to its status as a unique accolade. Tapping the goalie's pads. This custom receives little attention, but it is one of the most universally regarded and accepted. Before any game, players skate up by their goaltender and tap their pads in a supportive and encouraging gesture. Towel power. The towel power tradition is thought to have begun in 1982 when Vancouver lost a game to Chicago. Their coach, who blamed the loss on poor refereeing, placed a white towel over a hockey stick and raised it in an act of submission. His players quickly followed, and by the next game, Vancouver fans were waving white towels everywhere. If you're having fun so far, hit the subscribe button to catch our latest content while also supporting the channel. The Zamboni. The Zamboni is synonymous with hockey. The Zamboni cleans and resurfaces the ice before each game and in between periods to ensure it's smooth and ready for the next period of action. It has been sung about and idealized in hockey legends. If they win a contest, children in several cities can ride on the Zamboni. There's no romantic notion about the workers who scrub the playing surface in other sports. Nobody waxes lyrical about the guy who cleans perspiration off the basketball courts or paints yard markings in football. However, all hockey fans are familiar with the Zamboni, which has become a part of hockey culture and tradition. Don't touch the conference title trophies. Hockey players are notoriously superstitious. One popular belief holds that the captain of the team that wins the conference final should never touch the trophy. The reasoning is that the conference title is insufficient, and the team does not want to jeopardize its chances of winning the Stanley Cup in the next series. Goal horns. When the home team scores, the response is quick and rapid. The red light goes out, and each arena fills the stadium with its own slightly different cacophony. The most well-known was undoubtedly in Chicago Stadium. However, the goal siren or horn is frequently followed by a goal song that varies from year to year. In any case, the goal horn is a hockey tradition that fans equate with excitement. Sudden death overtime in playoff games. The NHL playoffs have long included sudden death overtime. Nothing is more dramatic and entertaining in sports than overtime in a playoff game, as tiredness, skill, and luck all come together to determine a winner. When the puck reaches their team's defensive zone, fans hold their breath and do not exhale until it is cleared. The game might end at any time due to anything from a brilliant play to a tough puck bounce. Even an average athlete can become famous if he scores the game-winning goal in overtime of a crucial playoff game. Bob Bourne, Mel Hill, and Stéphane Matteau are just a few of the players that have made their mark on hockey history by scoring significant overtime goals. Singing two national anthems. The benefit of having 23 American-based teams and 7 Canadian-based teams is that 2 national anthems are frequently played before a hockey game. Hearing the Canadian and American national anthems only adds to the atmosphere of a hockey game. Nobody performed the 2 anthems better than Roger Doucet of Montreal, who has set the tone for so many memorable games at the Forum throughout the years. The Winter Classic. The Winter Classic, which takes place on New Year's Day, is a relatively new tradition that has provided the NHL with a showcase event on American television during the regular season. Playing an outdoor game is a tradition that dates back to pond and river hockey, which was popular among children in Canada and the northern United States. It also enables record audiences at historic locations such as Fenway Park and Wrigley Field, giving the game a fresh flavor. The Playoff Handshake. Hockey is a physically demanding sport, especially during the Stanley Cup playoffs when the level of competition and intensity reaches unparalleled heights. However, at the conclusion of a hard-fought series in which personal grudge matches frequently emerge over the course of 7 games, hockey players partake in the best hockey ritual of all, the post-game handshake. Both teams form a line and shake hands. Winners are congratulated, while losers are commended for their efforts. If you're still looking for more hockey content, click the link on the screen to watch what hidden talents NHL players have.